Hi, everyone, and welcome to another LinkedIn Live session. My name is John Fokker. I'm head of threat intelligence at Trellix, and with me today I have a very special guest. It's Anne. Anne, introduce yourself. Welcome to have you here.
Hi, thanks for having me today. My name is Anne On. I'm part of the threat intelligence group where I lead strategic, technical, and operational research on adversarial cyber threats. I've been in the industry for over 10 years, and my passion is to help organizations understand and mitigate the risks and challenges posed by malicious cyber threat actors in a global and a dynamic threat landscape. So, really excited to dive into my favorite topic, which is Vault Typhoon, it's a new threat actor, and anything associated with the Chinese APT.
Uh,
So, thanks for having me.
yeah, it's great to have you here, and I love your passion. It's like you really chase down the bad guys and try to understand them and help our customers. And like you already alluded to, you're one of our specialists on Chinese APTs, Chinese threat actors, and in particular, things that you've been looking at recently is Fault Typhoon. So, can you help our audience understand a little bit what's Fault Typhoon?
Yeah, so this Volt Typhoon is a relatively new Chinese state-sponsored APT group. It started its operation in mid 2021, but Volt Typhoon stands out because its unique behavior pattern and targeting profiles, which kind of deviates from the conventional cyber espionage and intelligence collection of other China associate or China aligned APT groups. Previously, there's been a lot of reporting on this group. Open source reporting suggests that this Chinese APT group has pre-positioned itself on industrial control IT networks to facilitate lateral movement to disrupt operational technology, OT assets and functions, probably to do that in the event of geopolitical crisis or a war scenario. Our telemetry also shows that since resuming its activity or operations in January 2024, Volt Typhoon has repeatedly targeting the global government sectors, including the United States, while employing living off the land techniques. So this is a truly unique group that with a lot of research, and we've been devoting a lot of resources and on this group to figure out what they're up to these days.
Yeah, because that's different when you compare it to the more, well, you can say traditional or the other APT groups that we've seen that we commonly link to the Chinese Republic that are mostly on espionage, correct?
Yeah, it's very unique in terms of their behavior patterns. And I want to say that just by looking at our global sensor, the telemetry data, it was detected in 2024, but the group has become largely dormant with very little or no activity from August 2023 through January 2024. So it kind of went dark for a period of time. It's probably because the the reporting, the exposure, public exposure of their threat infrastructure, and they might be doing some sort of shift in attack infrastructure during this time, so that very few threat activity was detected. But they are back. They resumed operations in mid-January, and since January 2024, we have detected quite a number of their activities, and certainly in April we see a little bit spike in their activity. So it is an interesting group with like you know suddenly they went dark and they came back. They were targeting a different specific OT section of the infrastructure. So it's a lot of things about this group that is very mysterious, very interesting.
Okay. Can you tell a little bit more about, because we're talking about activity, about the TTP? So what sets them apart? I've read some stuff, or we see some stuff on living off the land tools. So is this stuff that you can elaborate on?
Yeah. So this group is very interesting in terms of their targeting profiles. So they're targeting specific, they're exploiting a lot of edge network devices, like routers and VPNs. So I can walk through that their general targeting. So they this group kind of spent a lot of resources on their the pre-exploitation reconnaissance to learn about the target organization and its environment. This is pretty common for a lot of Chinese APTs that they develop resource up front so that I guess it facilitates later on. So they do a lot of planning resources, and they tailor their tactics, techniques, and procedures (TTP) to the victim's environment. And then like other APT, Chinese aligned APT, they have dedicated ongoing resources to maintain the persistence and to like I said, continuously understanding the target environment over time, and even after their initial compromise. Like I said earlier, they historically targeted vulnerability in networking appliances, routers, but specifically Fortinet and Cisco devices to gain initial access. And then they target routers typically for two reasons. One is because routers can connect to networks to the internet, as well as connecting and controlling traffic across the internal segments. So they offer pretty good entry point, and means to move around the network, being undetected. And then I think the second important part is that routers are often overlooked, and not checked as frequently as fireworks and other devices. So which means that they have the right vulnerabilities for easier exploitation. So typically they get into the system. They use valid accounts to obtain admin credentials within the network, and then they move laterally to the domain controller and other devices through remote access services at RDP. So these are generally pretty typical for APT and in Chinese APT. And from there, they use a bunch of leaving of the land techniques, the abusive of remote desktop protocol RDP, server managed block SMB, that kind of things. And then they conduct a bunch of malicious activity using PowerShell to perform sort of target queries on Windows event logs, focusing on very specific users and the period of time. They're very extremely targeting, and that from there they kind of just move on to that becomes an interesting part when they test access to domain join OT assets using default OT vendor credentials. That's how they move from IT to OT. And that's the interesting part, like why they even targeting OT, which is kind of unconventional. And in this case, that means that the attacker would potentially be able to control sort of heating, ventilation, HVAC devices, systems. They can access like surveillance cameras at critical infrastructure. So they do a bunch of like things that they don't usually do. So that's kind of like the breakdown of their tactics. But John, I have a question for you since you're have so much experience with customer. For customer, what do they do? Like, with this type of unconventional tactics, how do they protect themselves, especially for customers who have IT and OT system? Now you have more things to worry about.
Yeah, that's a great question. When we look, we obviously have a lot of customers that have IT and OT combined. There's a lot of customers in manufacturing, energy, utility, even government that have network segmentation. And I think segmentation is the baseline for any OT IT environment, that you make sure that your OT environment that has to have a high availability is as much as it can be segmented from your IT environment, which is exposed or sometimes exposed to the internet. So you need to have those controls. The edge devices you touched upon, that's always a tough topic, right? Because you cannot really place an agent on the edge device. However, you can place the edge device in a DMZ or in a situation that you can have some level of control. However, threat actors often have to move from the edge device to a different point in the network. So having a network sensor like an NDR that can actually see certain traffic would be very helpful, as well as having, and when we talked about, you talked extensively about living off the land tools. So the path from your initial foothold to domain admin, that is most certainly, especially if you use valid accounts or you try to obtain valid accounts, so not relying on traditional malware. That's something where an EDR solution would shine because you're trying to detect that behavior. It's less reliant, what we see for Fault Typhoon, on traditional malware because we haven't seen like the other stuff that we see a lot with the other Chinese actors. But living off the land makes it harder, but at the same time, there's a huge opportunity for an EDR or XDR solution as well. But yeah, any OT environment advice that we have with segmentation, make sure you do regular scanning. As an organization, you would also check your environment, like check your IT environment, if there's any OT devices actually beaconing out. Because sometimes you would have, you would deal with a lot of third-party vendors, a lot of people coming in, doing maintenance, and you regularly want to make sure that nothing of your OT environment, your OT network is actually exposed or reachable from your IT network. So maintaining segmentation is like primary in this thing. This is a lot of cool insights, Anne, and I hope our listeners or our viewers find this insightful as well. I can highly recommend you, if you haven't looked at Anne's research, look it up. There's phenomenal stuff, not only on Fault Typhoon, on other threat actors as well. Our threat report is coming out, so I can highly recommend something or reading up on that one as well as if you haven't subscribe to our Trellix Advanced Research Center newsletter, that you can get all the latest blogs and news every month in your inbox. You can sign up through LinkedIn. And with that, Anne, I would thank you so much for sharing all your experience and all your knowledge with the group.
Not a problem. Really happy to share my insights. And stay tuned for more Trellix LinkedIn Live.